The Last Delivery. Part 1. Tyler Garrison knew every mile of the winding roads in western North Carolina. As a night shift delivery driver for a pharmaceutical distributor, his work began when most people were settling in for the night. It was a solitary routine, but one that gave him peace. Less traffic, fewer small talks, just him, the company truck, and the silent curves cutting through the mountains. That Thursday night, however, the route was different. His manager asked him to make a last-minute delivery to a pharmacy in a small town called Black Hollow, near the Virginia border. He had never heard of the place, but grabbed the box, punched the destination into the GPS, and headed out. The system suggested a back road, Route 77, an old trail that sliced directly through the mountains. It would be faster than taking the interstate. The sun had already vanished behind the horizon, and thick clouds were starting to swallow the moon. A bad omen, maybe. But Tyler was more concerned with meeting his delivery deadline. As he turned onto Route 77, he noticed the pavement was worn and cracked. The signs were rusted, and the few streetlights flickered like they were on their last breath. Still, the GPS insisted, "Stay on this road." He obeyed. About 20 minutes into the drive, something started to feel off. The trees were unnaturally tall, twisted, leaning over the road like they were watching him. But there was no traffic, not a single sign of life since he'd left the main road. Then he saw her, just for a second on the side of the road. A figure, a woman in white, with long black hair covering her face. She stood perfectly still, facing the woods. Tyler squinted. "I'm just tired," he muttered. When he looked again, she was gone. He tried to shake it off, but the unease was growing. He felt watched, like something or someone was pacing him in the dark. 10 minutes later, the truck's radio crackled. It was off. He turned the volume knob, but the static remained. Through the noise, he thought he heard a voice, whispering, but it was too faint to make out. Frustrated, he shut the system off completely. The silence that followed was somehow worse. With only 5 miles to go, the road narrowed. Trees and brush crept in from both sides, and the sky above was completely smothered by clouds. The truck's headlights barely cut through the darkness, and then he saw her again, the woman standing in the middle of the road, her face still hidden beneath that curtain of black hair. Tyler slammed the brakes, tires screeching on the wet pavement. But when the headlights fully reached her, she vanished. She didn't run. She didn't move. She simply disappeared, like smoke. Tyler was breathing hard now, his hands trembling on the steering wheel. He was about to turn back when the engine died. The dashboard lights went dark. The radio hissed to life on its own, and this time he heard it clearly. "You shouldn't be here." Part 2. The Hooded Girl. Tyler was frozen. The words still echoed in his mind. "You shouldn't be here." And yet there was no one in the truck with him. The radio was off, but that voice, he was certain it had come from there. He turned the key in the ignition again. Nothing, just the crushing silence pressing down on him like a weight. His phone? No signal. Of course not. He swallowed hard and looked around. The headlights still cast their dim light down the road, but they were weaker now, as if the night itself was sucking away their power. Outside, the forest seemed thicker. The trees leaned into one another, forming a pitch-black tunnel with no end. That's when he noticed something new. On the passenger side, just beyond the truck, the ground was disturbed. Footprints. Small, bare, wet. They started at the edge of the woods and ended right at the truck's door. He hadn't seen anyone approach. And more terrifying, there were no footprints going back. A sudden knock on the window made him jump in his seat. He snapped his head around, and there she was, but it wasn't the woman in white this time. It was a young girl wearing a black hood that shadowed part of her face. Her eyes were wide, pleading. She looked terrified, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. Her lips moved silently, like she was trying to speak, but no sound came out. Tyler hesitated before rolling down the window. "Are you okay?" he asked, doing his best to stay calm. She nodded slowly, but her eyes never left his. "You have to leave," she whispered. "She knows you're here." Who? Who knows? But before he could get an answer, she vanished. Gone, like she had never been there at all. Tyler threw open the door and looked around, spinning in place. Nothing. Then he heard it, a faint, mournful sound from deep within the forest. At first it was distant, but within seconds it was closer. A cry, or maybe a soft song, a sad melody, slow and hypnotic. Against every instinct, Tyler stepped into the woods. Just 2 steps. The sound was pulling him in, and then, between the trees, eyes. Dozens of them, glowing orange, unblinking, staring straight at him. He turned and sprinted back to the truck, slamming the door shut. The engine still refused to start. The radio, for some reason, flickered back on, and the voice returned, clearer this time. "She comes when the road sleeps, and the road is sleeping now." Tyler turned the key again. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th try, the engine roared back to life. He didn't hesitate. He threw it into gear and sped forward. But the road wasn't the same anymore. It didn't stretch ahead the way it had before. It twisted unnaturally, curling in on itself. It felt like he was driving in circles. The GPS was frozen. Time felt frozen. Every mile looked just like the last. He could have sworn he'd passed the same gnarled pine tree 3 times. Except there was a difference. Each time he passed it, a figure was closer to the road. The first time, distant, just a shadow. The second, a face, obscured by long black hair. The third, she was right next to the truck, and she looked straight at him. Tyler screamed. The truck fishtailed around a sharp curve, nearly tumbling into a ravine. He managed to regain control, barely. But then, the radio hissed one final time, and the voice, cold and hollow, spoke. "Now you're part of the road," and everything went dark. Part 3. The Man with the Broken Headlight. Tyler woke up to a weak sunlight hitting his face. He was still inside the truck, but now it was parked sideways on the edge of the road, like he had veered off and stopped there by accident. He looked at his watch. It was almost 9 a.m. What the hell? The last thing he remembered was driving in a panic in the middle of the night. Seeing the woman, the radio, the words, "Now you're part of the road." He touched his own face, surprised he was still there, alive. He opened the door, stumbling out, and walked around the truck. No scratches, no dents, no sign that anything strange had even happened. But he knew what he had seen, what he had felt. It was real. He checked his phone, full signal. Even a bunch of notifications had popped up, like everything had suddenly gone back to normal. He decided to drive to the next gas station. He needed to wash his face, drink something, try to understand what the hell was going on. After a few oddly quiet miles, he spotted a small gas station by the road. One of those old places with 60s-style fuel pumps and a half-lit neon sign. There was an old car parked there. One of its headlights was broken. And a man. He was sitting in a rocking chair out front, wearing a beat-up hat and dark sunglasses. Tyler stepped out of the truck and walked straight to him. "Excuse me, sir. Do you know this area? This road? Route 77? The man slowly nodded. "I know it better than I'd like," he said in a rough voice. "You saw her, didn't you?" Tyler froze. "How do you know?" "Everyone who gets lost here sees her. The woman of the road. She shows up when the road sleeps, when it's hungry." Tyler felt his heart start to race. "Who is she?" The man sighed and took off his glasses. "They say that years ago, a pregnant woman was trying to escape her abusive husband. She took this road in the middle of the night, drove non-stop, crying, terrified, until she lost control and went over the edge. They never found her body. But ever since then, people who take this road alone, especially at night, some of them get lost. Some hear voices, some see the woman, and some never make it out." Tyler couldn't tell if the old man was joking or dead serious, but there was something in his voice, something heavy, a quiet kind of truth. "And the ones who do make it out?" he asked. The old man looked at Tyler's truck. "They come back different. The road leaves a mark, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one way or another, it calls them back." Tyler didn't respond, just nodded, thanked him, and got back in the truck. But before pulling away, he looked in the rearview mirror. The old man was still there, but now he was looking directly at him and smiling, a strange, crooked smile like he was saying, "Now you understand." Tyler started the engine and drove away as fast as he could. It wasn't until he reached the next town, with the local radio playing in the background, that he noticed one last thing. The truck's right headlight was broken.